day, students. Today we would be talking of egalitarianism. However, before we begin, let us start with a few basic questions. Number 1, are all humans of equal moral worth? Number 2, is the presence of unequal wealth and income just? Number 3, does it matter that the allocation of wealth and income and the family we are born into is shaped by mere luck? In order to answer these questions better, we would take the help of egalitarianism. The very word egalitarian is a broad and contested concept in both social and political thought. Though there are multiple ways of approaching the very question of equality, an egalitarian is one who maintains that humans should have equal moral worth. In this sense, it is normative in nature, as it is concerned with how one ought to be treated. Egalitarianism generally speaks of the fundamental worth, essence, or qualities that renders each and every human being as equals. Hence, they should be treated as equals. As the ideology, principle, or doctrine, it calls for equal rights, benefits, dignity, opportunities, or in other words, equal treatment for all. Thus, those who treat only members of their own group comprising an us as equals and others comprising them to be not equals are not egalitarians. Egalitarianism is based on an idea of universal human commonality. To many, egalitarianism is an ideal, and its objective is to make the human society as better and just as possible. Egalitarianism is linked with the idea of substantive distributive justice, wherein it calls for equalizing the distribution of some quantifiable thing among persons, which might be wealth and income. Broadly speaking, egalitarianism can be divided in the following manner: non-instrumental and instrumental. Non-instrumental or intrinsic egalitarians value equality as an end in themselves or for its own sake. In this regard, one might choose the metric equality that is intrinsically good, such as welfare or well-being. Those things are desirable by themselves, not because they are instrumental in acquiring other goods. On the other hand, instrumental egalitarians value equality as a means to achieve something else, which might be peace, harmony, happiness, fraternity. Instrumental egalitarians argue that equality is desirable because it promotes some other good. Might be peace, harmony, as we have stated before. And it is an equal and important component of something else which we cannot do away with. Background. Going by how egalitarianism developed in Europe and Anglo-American philosophical thought, one can say that the very Christian idea that God loves every human soul equally is an important source for the development of the above concept. Egalitarian ideals were also a significant feature of the Enlightenment movement, which emphasized the common humanity of all members of society. Egalitarian principles had also guided the American War of Independence and the French Revolution, though they were imperfectly enacted. All of the above have focused on one of the most fundamental aspects of egalitarianism, which is that people are of equal moral worth. The modern-day notion of human rights, for example, supposes not only that human beings have moral standing, but that they have got universal human rights that can be equally claimed by all humans. These rights are available to all regardless of any differences in terms of race, gender, religion, ethnicity, or ability. Similarly, many like Paul Taylor might like to focus on the very idea of biocentric egalitarianism. Paul Taylor claims that all living entities have moral standing, but unlike some biocentrists, he claims that all living things have the same inherent worth. Further, to say that a being has inherent worth is to say that there is some inherent good in that thing, regardless of its usefulness or if it is valued by humans or not. Social egalitarianism is based on the view that each individual should have the same right as the other. In this view, because some inequalities such as discrimination based on race, gender are inherently unjust, equality is desirable or even necessary for the sake of justice. Legal egalitarianism is of the principle that everyone is subject to the same laws or equality before law, implying that no person has more legal protection than others. Political egalitarianism simply might mean that equality prevails within the political space or political sphere, implying equal standing in terms of political power and influence. Equal citizenship calls for one person, one vote, universal adult suffrage, and various other rights. Economic egalitarianism is based on the view that individuals should have similar or equal levels of wealth and income. More than equality of opportunity, they focus on the equality of outcomes. Francois Babioff's conspiracy of equals might be perceived as an extreme form of economic egalitarianism. His work advocated absolute equality of incomes and prepared the ground for conspiratorial and insurrectionary movements of socialist persuasion. However, Karl Marx, in the Critique of the Gotha program, opined that given the vastness and diversity of human society, it is but normal that some would be better off than others. Socialist principles generally state that no one is above me, no one is below me, and individual contributions are considered to be assets of the community or the commonwealth, which should be equally and rightfully shared. Feminism may also be regarded as an egalitarian movement championing the cause of women's equality with men across all spheres of life, aiming at economic, political, and social equality. Feminism arose in response to the widespread oppression of women throughout history in various societies. Feminism thus seeks to dismantle or address this system of oppression and establish equality for women. However, in the present day, sometimes feminism is thought to be divisive in nature. Hence, today, egalitarianism is sometimes proposed as an alternative label to feminism. Ronald Dworkin famously introduced the distinction between option luck and brute luck while highlighting the concept of responsibility. If a particular loss is the product of a choice that an individual has made, then it is an instance of option luck. The individual is responsible for it. If, however, it is not a product of any choice that an individual has made, but is rather a matter of circumstances, then it is an instance of brute luck, and the individual who suffers the loss should be compensated. Thus, the goal of luck egalitarianism is to eliminate the influence of brute luck, both good or bad, in the determination of people's fortunes. When people's opportunities or life outcomes are unequal in some important respect, we have a reason to lessen that inequality. However, it should also be mentioned here that liberals do not focus on equality of outcomes. Even when unequal wealth in societies exist, along with widespread poverty, liberal thinkers like John Rawls thus favor limited unequal treatment. To attain the goal of distributive justice, inequality is permissible if it benefits the marginalized or the worst off section of the population. It is on this ground that inequalities and differential treatment is allowed. It should be mentioned here that to many, liberal egalitarian theory of justice is merely a paradox, as it seeks to combine the values of equality with personal freedom and personal responsibility. Inequalities and differential treatment. The reality is that men differ in their talents and efforts. Their social backgrounds differ too. Hence, equal distribution of rewards, disregarding these differences, would not be helpful at all. It might also be unjust to them, and it might also be possible that skillful, competent, and industrious persons might be demotivated by such instances of equal distribution of rewards. Hence, what is held acceptable by many is the idea of equality of opportunity, calling for the removal of all obstacles that prevent personal development and self realization. Equal opportunity advocates that all individuals should have an equal start to life or equal life chances. Equality of opportunity seeks to reduce the impact of inequalities attached to socio-cultural and economic backgrounds. Positive discrimination or differential treatment. However, one contested subterranean of equality of opportunity is the idea of positive discrimination or the idea of differential treatment, which is linked with the idea of substantive equality. Despite our focus on equality while discussing egalitarianism, one must remember that we do not always treat everyone equally. In order to ensure justice, we need to recognize special needs of people while distributing duties as well as rewards. For instance, while treating someone differently or discriminating against them on the basis of race, caste, religion, ethnicity might be wrong or unacceptable. However, reserving parking spaces for physically challenged persons might be held acceptable. Similarly, giving priority to elders or pregnant mothers while boarding a flight might also be very much held to be acceptable. The term differential treatment refers to policy measures that are consciously designed by the state to discriminate among the citizens based on certain specified criteria to protect the interests of those who are weakest among them. It is a policy through which special privileges are granted to underprivileged sections of the society, who in the past or in the present have been the victims of multiple forms of social discrimination like caste-based or racial discrimination. These are affirmative action programs undertaken by the state to bring equity and justice among all sections of society. While equality calls for providing the same treatment to all, be it in terms of opportunities or rewards, equity requires an understanding that all do not need similar treatment, as it otherwise might lead to unequal outcomes or a lack of balance altogether. If we look at the photo, we can see that there are three people trying to watch the match from outside the wall, as let us assume they have not received any tickets for the match. If we look at them, we can find a full-grown man who is tallest among the three. There are two children as well, one of whom is almost a toddler. Equality would dictate that all of them be given a crate each so that they can watch the game. But in so doing, we would notice that the small child is still not being able to watch the game. If we were to follow the principle of equality, then this problem would still continue. However, if we follow the principle of equity, then we would give the small kid two crates, as the tall man can easily watch the game without any assistance. By doing so, all the three persons now can watch the match with ease and without any discomfort. Now, the question that can come to our mind is why differential treatment is at all needed. From the example cited, it might become obvious that various provisions involving the differential treatment are crucial for ensuring social justice in various egalitarian societies. Its objective is to reduce the persistent discrimination or inequality in society by giving preferential treatment to the backward, marginalized sections of the society while distributing valued social goods and opportunities. Now, let us come to the question of affirmative action. What is affirmative action? Affirmative action means positive steps taken to increase the participation of women and minority communities in areas of employment, education, and culture from where they have been historically excluded. Affirmative action aims to correct or rectify a pre existing wrong practice of discrimination. Affirmative action is also committed not to repeat such past wrong actions. The principle of affirmative action is to promote social equality through the preferential treatment of socio-economically backward section of the population. It aims at counterbalancing myriad forms of inequalities and ultimately eliminate the social disadvantages associated with gender, race, caste, etc., through various programs adopted by the administration. Such a policy has been justified in the name of equal opportunities principle. Now, let us look into few instances of affirmative action. The US has been one of the pioneers of introducing the policy of affirmative action, which was based on race as a category. Discrimination against blacks in the form of black codes or Jim Crow laws existed in the post-Civil War times America, and various discriminatory acts continued till the middle of the 20th century. However, it was felt that when racial minorities are underprivileged, socioeconomically speaking, merely granting them formal equality was not enough, as it did not ensure opportunity to gain education, pursue a career, or right to enter a political life. While the concept of affirmative action has existed in the USA since the 19th century, it first appeared in its current form in President Kennedy's Executive Order number 10925 of 1961. It had stated, and I quote, "The contractor will take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin." Civil Rights Act of 1964 was also a step towards the goal of affirmative action in the USA, which provided inter alia that no person shall, on the ground of race or color, be excluded from participating in any program receiving federal financial assistance. Preferential treatment was later extended to include women as well as other disadvantaged ethnic minority communities. In the US, quota systems were adopted during university admission procedures. However, in the 1970s, the use of racial quotas and minority set-asides led to court challenges of affirmative action as a form of reverse discrimination. The first major challenge was Regents of the University of California versus Bakke, 1978, in which the Supreme Court of USA ruled that quotas may not be used in order to reserve places for minorities in such instances where white applicants are denied a chance to compete for those places. Although the court outlawed quota program, it allowed colleges to use race as an important category or important factor worth considering while giving admission. Now let us come to the Constitution of India. Now, India is also one country which has adopted various programs of affirmative action. The Constitution of India created a number of safeguards for those who were considered untouchables in the society based on Hindu Varna system or caste system. These persons were referred to as people belonging to the scheduled castes. Provision for differential treatment was created for scheduled castes as well as people who were hailed to be indigenous people or Adivasis, who were termed as scheduled tribes. Apart from providing reservation in parliamentary seats, they were also given preferences in the form of quota in the admission to schools and colleges, jobs in the public sector, and various other economic benefits as well for the overall development of these marginalized groups, which also included OBCs and EWS. Since the 1990s, seats are also reserved for women in panchayat and urban local bodies. The Constitution guaranteed the fundamental right of equality of all citizens before the law, but it also categorically laid down that nothing in this article, and I quote, shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, unquote. The state is also empowered to take special measures for the betterment and welfare of these disadvantaged sections of the society. In other words, the policy of reservation or positive discrimination is an integral part of the process to bring about socio-economic change, integration, and development in Indian societies. Article 14's interpretation of equality provides the theoretical basis for giving preferential treatment to the scheduled castes and tribes under the reasonable classification standard. Provisions for affirmative action are also contained in Articles 15 Part 4, 16 Part 4, 46 and 340. The above articles ensuring protective discrimination and equality of outcome form the backbone of social justice measures, which were given due importance by the framers of the Indian Constitution. Now, if we are to sum up, how are we going to go about it? The thing is, egalitarianism implies that all persons have equal moral and legal standing. Number 2, generally speaking, it is unjust for people to be treated unequally on the basis of certain irrelevant traits. However, when persons' opportunities or life outcomes are unequal in some important respect, we have every reason to lessen such inequality. This calls for positive discrimination or adoption of various programs related to affirmative action. The above statements are crucial for our understanding as to how substantive justice can be implemented to an already divided, unequal and unjust society as that of India. Thank you.